Hello and welcome to Celebrating Agriculture, a night in which we reflect on the contribution of WA's farmers to the state's economy and to their role in feeding the world. In the short time available to us, it simply isn't possible to adequately recognise every facet of this industry. It's very diverse, with thousands of farmers engaged in a myriad of agricultural enterprises. Tonight you'll meet a small sample of the people who are engaged in WA's third largest export earning industry, and together we'll celebrate the achievements, the contribution and the passion of WA's agricultural industry. We'll eat and drink food and wine produced by these outstanding professionals, and we'll toast to their success. That's your success. I'm Jerry Gannon. Here's a taste of what's to come.
Opportunity, opportunity, opportunity.
You know, the old Chamberlain tractor, mighty machine.
Yeah, there's not a quiet time of the year.
We now got a new apple in the market called Enchanted. That was bred entirely in WA.
There's a certain sense of pride in producing the food for the world.
I'm absolutely married to a gorgeous farmer.
They forget that food just doesn't come out of the fridge in the local supermarket. Someone has to grow it.
I almost parochial as all hell and say we were streets ahead, and we were. And we probably still are. Don't forget, this state produces over 40% in a normal year of the grain crop. You know, we're farmers are farming land in this state that nobody else would even attempt to farm.
This subclover here that we're looking at the moment, that's the lifeblood of our whole system.
When something drives you, you go back to that and give it a red hot go.
I think there's a lot of fun in running sheep, whereas plants are pretty dull.
When it comes to actually grass and grain and how to feed sheep and stuff, these guys just kick ass.
I'd like to think knife points are pretty clever.
First thing we invented was the crutching crimer.
The introduction of the new vessels, the big vessels.
The boom spray, I would reckon.
The boom spray.
Boom spray.
Auto shut off on the boom spray and things like that.
And the second thing we invented was the jetting race.
What's known about staple strength, probably 80% of the knowledge on staple strength in wool is from West Australian work.
A lot of people said that the movement or the change from bags to bulk.
GPS technology.
There's no wiggly lines or anything like that.
Well, the air seeder is one.
Early on, it would have been the chemicals.
Lupins were a crop which had been developed by John Gladstones.
The air-conditioned cab on the tractor, or just a cab on a tractor to start with.
Landcare has achieved a huge amount.
Third thing then we invented was the V machine.
The use of cobalt and selenium. In the case of selenium, the bullets are silver.
Minimum till or no till.
The fourth thing we went for was we'd moved into a lot of cropping was the no-till system.
The advent of the computer and its widespread use.
Probably mobile telephones that work.
The adoption of nitrogenous fertilisers.
Fifth thing was a chemical transfer system that won an award at Darren.
You know, the cocky gate latch. If you let it on, the girls let them on go and stand back and they go whack and hit them in the boobs. So I made one that it doesn't fly to bits when you let it go.
First word that comes to mind that I can think of to characterise WA farmers would be resilient.
Western Australian farmers, I think, are the best in the world.
They have to be someone special, I think.
Sometimes mad.
Always looking forward.
We're strong, we're enthusiastic.
Extremely resilient.
They're really well clued in.
The commitment they put into farming is unbelievable.
I think in one word, resilient.
Stubborn.
We're not stubborn, we're quite adaptable.
But I'd say stubborn, mainly.
Yeah, well that's what resilient means, isn't it?
We don't mind change, we don't mind a challenge.
Innovative.
They're tough.
Somewhat tenacious.
Quite savvy.
We're just bloody minded a fair bit of the time.
We're fairly well-rounded characters.
Farmers are now more diverse.
Farmers overall are generally, I think, very in tune with nature and the cycles of life.
I do think we're fairly unique, a unique breed in WA.
At the top of our list is WA farmers because they're supplying the produce our customers want to buy.
What about progressive? We're a pretty progressive mob.
I think the term would be aggressively progressive, yeah, would be a good term.
I always have great difficulty describing the work of the farm management consultant. You could call us an industrial espionage agent if you like, because what you need to be successful is a good clientele of pretty smart farmers. But that's easy because only the smart farmers take on a consultant.
I think farm advisors are extremely valuable to your business because they get an insight into a whole group of other businesses who are all doing the same thing but in slightly different ways and with slightly different enterprise mixes.
Who else do you go to get the truth, or without any vested interest? Even the neighbour's going to exaggerate slightly.
You can't walk up to Joe Bloggs and say, well, how much, what was your return on capital last year? Because he'll probably tell you to go and jump.
That somebody comes out with the latest fancy sort of fertiliser substitute and it's up to us to say, no, it's not going to work, don't waste your money on it.
Consultants have been very, very useful.
I think the farm management consultants, as they're now known, have done an excellent job. They're now statewide, and I don't think I could imagine any farmer farming at the present time who hasn't got access to a farm management consultant.
The constant trading of information between the consultant and the client means that we're continually pushing each other to reach higher goals.
My mother used to say, as for that bloody Bob Hall, he can come here, but he doesn't have to do the bloody work, does he? I can still remember saying that bloody Bob Hall. But Bob's a great figure man, Bob.
But the art of the consultant is to present a challenge.
One of the nice things about Western Australia was farmers didn't necessarily take on what you told them, but they certainly always listened. So they were always keeping an ear to the latest results and so on. It was a great place for a scientist to be working because at least they listened to you. And if what you had to say was a bit of crap, well, they'd soon work that out as well.
Today, farmers talk in terms of 2.5 to 3 tonnes per hectare. 40 years ago, they talked in terms of 1 to 1.5 or maybe 2 tonnes per hectare. We've done a tremendous amount in the last 10 years, and I think, although the breeders might argue about this a little bit, a lot of that has been due to agronomy.
My weaknesses have been, I guess, in things like agronomy, and fellas like Bill Bowden and Mark Sweetingham and many others have been quite influential in my life because that has been my weakest area.
If you go around and have a look, there's some pretty smart stuff happening in Western Australia.
Probably the two most significant things for us since I've been farming has been the advent of trace element fertilisers, which has opened up a lot of the sandplain and lighter country, and the other one is subclovers. There's a lot of new technology and stuff nowadays, but I still think those two have been the most important to us.
It's all about the amount of rain we get and the amount of grain we produce from that rain, and we're always trying to improve that ratio.
We are farming right in the margins here, especially if you go further out east. I think we do very well with the West Australian farmers in the soils. We've got some of the weakest soils in the world, and we still manage to find ways around getting really good yields off these poor soils.
Raised beds have meant a hell of a lot to us. Last year we had an average of about 1.7 tonnes of barley off a 60 hectare patch. There was 3 hectare average control in the middle, and that went 200 kilos. So, you know, to me they're huge numbers. 200 kilos to 1.7 tonnes, pretty good stuff. So I think raised beds are magic.
If you have a look at Western Australia compared with anywhere else in Australia or anywhere else in the world, it's probably one of the poorest environments to tame, and West Australian farmers, and to I suppose a lesser extent West Australian scientists, have succeeded in taming it, and that really is worth celebrating. Farmers are very receptive to new ideas. Their survival is dependent on those new ideas. And when you go to those farmers and you sell an idea with passion that you believe in, you sell it with enthusiasm, they will match that enthusiasm and they will commit themselves, make their own judgments. But it's that combination of new knowledge with farmer skills and farmer knowledge and farmer know-how that really says this agriculture industry is going somewhere. It's something worth celebrating.
The people that made the most difference were the early pioneers in the industry because they had the idea and they made it work.
I couldn't agree more with that. It's what the older generation has done for us younger generation coming through. It's a lot of us, people my age, don't understand what the older generation actually went through to get the farms where they are today.
The first name that springs to mind is Bob Hall.
Peter Faulkner from Plant Farm has been one of those.
I think Ralph Burnett, Roger Cook with ICI.
I'd have to say Harry Whittington.
Probably Ver Moritz.
Dave Pethick.
Peter Treafer, just a magnificent visionary.
Fellas like Bill Bowden.
John Gladstone's with his lupin breeding especially, and later on the wine industry.
Dawson Bradford, another visionary who is a magnificent farmer.
Bill Roy.
Jim Shepherd.
And Noel Fitzpatrick.
Another guy that springs to mind, Bill Henderson.
Bill Henderson, my grandfather, has always been an inspiration to me. He's going to cry when I say that.
We've got something that the eastern states haven't got, and that's the lupin. That's just a magic pill.
Lupins were a crop which had been developed by John Gladstone's, which the Department of Agriculture was growing quite well on research stations, but farmers' yields were very poor. And with a plant breeder called John Hamblin, we put forward a package that got lupins into the system.
There are stories that John Gladstone asked various farmers how they grew, and he said, and I know one particular farmer said, well, they didn't grow very well, but the pigs loved them. In our particular case, what we did, we got a number of growers together and we bulked it up. So instead of planting 1 bag each, we would actually plant 5 or 10 bags. And that way we were able to, in 1966, bulk up enough seed to plant this 1A paddock in 1967. I planted them in 1968. I happened to walk into Bar in Geraldton, and Frank Haley from Chapman Valley was talking about how good these lupins were out for sheep feed and all that. So I said, you got any seed? And he said, I got 30 bags. So I said, well, I'll be over tomorrow. Owen Greaves and Paul Thompson came out and sat on the Jeep when I was harvesting them and asked me what I thought of them. I said they're white gold. I could see the future was huge.
We like lupins. We don't grow them, but we love to buy them.
We were really up against a brick wall until we ran into a fellow named Pell House in Kojana, who, and on his place he had, instead of perhaps 10 ewes with twins in every 100, he had 60 ewes in every 100 with twins. And we said, what do you do? And he said, oh, nothing much. It's just did the usual thing. We ran them on stubbles and we did all that sort of thing. And just we're going, he said, oh, the stubbles were lupin stubbles. And it was at that point we said, hang on, this is a bit different. It was a very big thing for Western Australia.
I might reflect that in 1975 I went to the Food and Agriculture Organisation, the arm of the United Nations. I asked Dr. Rayo why is it we couldn't feed the starving millions of children with high protein lupin flour. Dr. Rayo said to me, he reached down underneath his desk and he pulled out a bag of West Australian sweet white lupins. He said, we are actually researching it now to do just that, to feed these children. And 33 years down the track, well, we're still researching it.
Lupin flour can be used in cakes and biscuits. It is a high protein flour. It is just hopefully going to make the Sandplain country unstoppable.
And that to me has been the challenge, is to get on top of all these things and to make this great industry work, you know?
West Australian agriculture needs as many crops in the system as it can to widen the rotation. So lupins made all the difference, and it would be even more important now if another crop came into the system too, preferably a legume.
You know, sheep and merino wool particularly has been our core business for 103 years. I'm a fifth generation farmer and that has been the backbone of our business.
The important thing about being a successful sheep farmer is you have to like sheep. Some people would rather not have them, some people see them as vermin, whereas I think I'm probably in a minority in my age group where I'd rather chase sheep than sit on a tractor.
We had no sheep here for many years, 20-25 years of continuous cropping. Now we're probably about 25 to 30% of our farm is tied up with clovers and sheep during the winter.
We've got the mulesing debate, we've got live export debate, which is frightening a lot of people off. But in our situation, we're going to still continue with our stocking program. At the present moment, there's about just over 9,000 grown sheep and probably 5,000 lambs on deck as well, and they're running them on about 1,000 hectares.
We've run about 50,000 and
being a typical client, you'll say to me, that's enough, I'm not going to get any more. But you watch what happens when the farm next door comes up for lease.
I would expect that we would continue to have a similar amount of sheep in our system for some time to come.
And I think it's very challenged as to how long we can go on producing good wool. Look, I think really the jury is out a little bit for us.
The sheep industry can survive periods of difficulty and come out the other end. And people like Mark will keep a major sheep flock even though the profit isn't quite what he'd like to see, knowing full well that when it comes good he's got a lot of sheep, and that's that 1 year in 10 when you make a huge profit.
To be honest, you look at the portfolio of options you've got in sheep, they're still pretty good. I mean, you still make a bit of a quid out of wool. You've got a very vibrant live export trade. There's good money, for very light lambs, and every economist with a hole in their whatever still says that the future for lamb is just brilliant. And in other markets, I think we go down this clean green sort of image, which is not an image. We can prove that. For beef, Meat Standards Australia for me was a seminal moment. The way the West Australian processors, that's the abattoirs, and the farmers leapt on board to underpin the quality of West Australian product. It's just phenomenal.
Our breeding herds we have here at WA are really a cut above the rest, and the feedlots are really coming to age.
Yeah, there's a lot of pride in seeing a cow come in at 300 kilos and then leave fat and finished and ready for someone's plate. And everyone likes a bit of beef.
hope we're coming through loud and clear. A special broadcast this morning from the office of our intrepid early morning weatherman Don Thompson.
In the early days when I joined in 1963, the program was unashamedly aimed at the farmer. We made no excuses. Plus the fact it was in many cases the only source of that information. Newspapers a week late, Farmers Weekly probably a week late, Countryman a week late. We had the information, and those two periodicals I just mentioned, they would come to us for some of the transcripts of our broadcasts. That was reality. It was a farmer's program. Everywhere you went in Western Australia, oh, do you know John Barner? Oh yes, I do know John. You've got Rowan Greaves, Paul Thompson, that team, if you like, of three. We were around for perhaps too long, some would say.
I asked for someone in the middle of the broadcast area to volunteer to provide daily weather data. And Don Thompson put up his hand, and he's been faithfully reporting weather conditions each day. His landmark compost tumbler, reflecting moisture conditions each morning, has become something of an icon. Well, here it is, Don, the trusty icon of a compost tumbler. It's done some weather reporting, hasn't it?
It certainly has, between you and I, Owen, because you started all this racket, remember that, and whether it's been a good gauge or not, it's certainly been a good gauge for dew.
I'd like to read you this poem. It's called The Compost Tumbler's Dry by Kay McGregor. In this age of technology, of satellites and gadgetry, state-of-the-art machinery, where does it leave you and I? We're helpless in the space-age clutch. The world has lost the human touch. Computers replace brains as such. Where will it all end, we cry? But wait, there's hope for you and me. I tuned into the ABC. No Bureau of Meteorology, just Don, who looks up at the sky. My faith in human nature's back. This tin current farmer's on the track. Today you'll not need your Mac, for the compost tumbler's dry.
Live export makes sense. We're the livestock professionals of this industry. We're the ones that know what's good for our animals. And without healthy animals, there's no healthy profits.
Our goals are to grow the business to a $1 billion export industry through greater volume and through better value. Our business started in the late 50s and early 60s with my father meeting a young 28-year-old Arab in the Middle East. And at that stage they thought that the potential for the whole export trade to the Middle East would be 200,000 head per annum. Today, of course, we're up to 4 million heads, and 200,000 would only be 2 shipment loads. So they had a great vision then, but the trade has evolved a lot since that time.
There's some people doing marvellous things.
The export hay business is a relatively new business. It only started about 20 years ago. Today it's fairly important, especially the people that are involved in it. But the West Australian hay is generally the highest quality hay in Australia, and that's probably brought about because we have the driest climate. Yes, we're making inroads into that.
It's all out there to be got, and it's up to the individual to go out and grab it and run as hard and get out of it what they really want.
The yabby industry really has met a diversification, and I mean, I believe we have to do everything we can to do things differently. We're actually in the fishing industry in the middle of nowhere. We can't produce enough yabbies for the world market. They've got a taste for them, they love them, they're exquisite, they're unique, they're really sweet, and they're on plates all over the world in the best restaurants. That is really exciting.
I'd like to think knife points are pretty clever.
I think it's certainly allowed us to establish a crop much earlier than historically we've been able to.
Again, that was a matter of necessity of invention.
It pointed out to me as a consultant that farmers were quite prepared to spend a lot of money on conservation.
Back in '80 when we dreamed this up, we never realised the benefits for even us here in Darkin. You know, last year we sowed our crop on 9 mil of rain, the year before 5 mil in Darkin, of all places. So we just didn't realise the genie we were letting out the bottle.
And if it hadn't have worked by the year 2000, forget it. But it's just gone.
If it wasn't for that block of material, tungsten carbide, there would be no no-till. We used to make a new set of points every day, 65 every day, one bloke making points all the time. We'd only get one day out of a set of points, and they were all bolt-on, 65 of them. I've got mates out the wheat belt now who start sowing by the calendar. They see a cloud coming and they know they're going to get a couple of mils, they'll crop on it because they know they can get it out of the ground. For my entity, no-till is the number one for my program.
For the whole program. Whole country of Western Australia, whole country of Australia.
The pride to think that we started with something, the reasons we started with it was sort of erosion was our big problem in Darkin.
And the whole thing for what we've done, whether regardless be our sheep handling gear or our no-till gear, we are passionate farmers. We've done it for agriculture of Australia.
Well, the Conditton Group today is Australia's largest farm membership, farm improvement and information dissemination group.
Well, from where it began back in those years, I'm certainly a degree of pride, but a degree of amazement, really, that it's gone on to the level it has from where we left it.
The focus was basically field trials and so on, but without the Department of Agriculture we would never have achieved much because they were extremely generous with their time.
We now tackle a whole range of things that affect the industry beyond just the machinery side of things.
We're pretty chuffed about where it's come from, where it's come to.
The industry decided we need to look at the Western Australian viticulture industry. So we brought out Professor Olmo from California, and he spent 6 months here. In that 6-month visit, virtually set up where the viticulture industry is in Western Australia today. He suggested we were growing wine grapes in the wrong region, we should be growing in the cooler climates of the southwest. With the table grape industry, he said, you're doing a good job, but you're growing the wrong varieties and you need to solve a soil problem. We believe we've produced the world's best crimson seedless table grapes. Every international expert that comes here says we can't believe anybody could produce fruit of that quality. Dr. John Gladson's not only a pillar to agriculture in general. When you consider that man did lupins and took it to where it is worldwide today. But if it wasn't for him, we probably would not have the wine industry we have in the southwest of Western Australia today. And believe you me, that is something the state can be very, very proud of.
My dad's got a magic tractor.
There's satellites up there in the sky and it's got a yellow thing on the top of the tractor.
The food makes it drive all by itself.
Yeah, it's good cropping country.
bird farmer and a crop farmer.
I'd wish for the best produce, the best stock, and fences that would never rust.
I want to be a farmer because my dad's a farmer.
When I grow up, I really will be a farmer. I'm not joking.
I think the farmers have a huge sense of community, and they are some of the strongest communities you will ever come across.
Like, they're friendly, they're outgoing, and when we came out here, like, they got us into the footy. They were playing for the Rezzies.
No people, no farming. So we need the people, and we need the community to be welcoming. And you know, if it means an oval or a rec centre or something, we've got to have it.
There's 6 of our local clubs who have actually been involved in raising money for the building, and so consequently we've got a building and we've had no outside grants at all. It's purely and simply all a community project.
I think that what's required from a community to build a building like this in a project of such magnitude is real sticking power.
I think every single family in Borden, probably at some stage or another, has either been to a function here, played sport here, visited the doctor here, visited the child health nurse here, been here to help contribute to one of the volunteering busy bees. I don't think there's many families that probably haven't had at least some aspect of their lives touched by this building.
The sense of community is thorough. I mean, it is from one day, start of your day to the end of your day, that you always feel that sense of community. I mean, I guess we've grown up like that, and I would hate to see that be anything different.
Out here, everybody, bands together. If anyone has an accident or goes wrong, you just have to sit back and watch what happens, like how strong the community comes together. Occasionally that can be a disadvantage because they kind of know your business before it happens, and if they don't know, they sometimes make it up.
My first day in the town, I was in the local papers and people had come and introduced themselves, which was nice, and everyone knows who I am and I still don't know who people are.
We need the girls to come to the bush, and if there aren't some attractions, well, they won't come, and then the blokes won't be here, so who's going to farm? Nobody. So community is really important.